reading from Canto 3, Chapter 15, verse number 45. And it says, "This is the form of the Lord which is meditated upon by the followers of the yoga process, and it is pleasing to the yogis in meditation. It is not imaginary, but factual, as proved by great yogis. The Lord is full in 8 kinds of achievements. But for others, these achievements are not possible in full perfection." Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So this is Canto 3, Chapter 15, verse number 45. Canto 3, Chapter 15, verse 45. Purport. The success of the yoga process is very nicely described here. It is specially recommended. It is specifically mentioned that the form of the Lord as four-handed Narayana is the object of meditation for the followers of Yoga Marga. Yoga Marga, the path of yoga. In the modern age, there are so many so-called yogis who do not target their meditation on the four-handed Narayana form. Some of them try to meditate on something impersonal or void, but that is not approved by the great yogis who follow the standard method. The real yoga marga means path. The real yoga marga or real yoga path process is to control the senses, sit in a solitary and sanctified place, and meditate on the four-handed form of Narayana, decorated as described in this chapter, as he appeared before the four sages. This Narayana form is Krishna's expansion. Therefore, the Krishna consciousness movement, which is now spreading, is the real topmost process of yoga practice. Krishna consciousness is the highest yoga. Krishna consciousness is the highest yoga performance by trained devotional yogis. Despite all the allurement of yoga practice, the 8 kinds of yogic perfections are hardly achievable by the common man. But here it is described that the Lord, who appeared before the 4 sages, is himself full of all 8 of these perfections. The highest yoga marga process is to concentrate the mind 24 hours a day on Krishna. We're reading from Canto 3, Chapter 15, Text 45. 3, 15, 45. The highest yoga marga means the path of yoga, is meditating on the transcendental form of the Lord. The Krishna consciousness is the highest yoga performance by trained devotional yogi. Despite all the allurement of yoga practice, the 8 kinds of yogic perfections are hardly achievable by the common man. But here it is described that the Lord, who appeared before the 4 sages, is himself full of all 8 of those perfections. The highest yoga marga or path of yoga process is to concentrate the mind 24 hours a day on Krishna. This is called Krishna consciousness. Let me just stop there for a second. How can you concentrate your mind 24 hours a day on Krishna? That's by dovetailing everything into Krishna consciousness. And what does it mean to dovetail everything into Krishna consciousness? That is, you have no interest outside of Krishna. In other words, you're not interested in sports. You're not interested in illicit activities. You're not interested in speculations. You're not interested in anything that is not directly related to Krishna consciousness. So therefore, uh, there are many examples of this type of lifestyle. For example, you have monks who all day long they do silent meditation. Of course, that's not what we do, but they are concentrating all day long on something or nothing. Either they're concentrating on some light, or they're concentrating on the tip of their nose, or they're concentrating on nothing. But we don't do that type of meditation. But you see, it is related to Krishna consciousness in the sense that they're meditating 24 hours a day. That's not the recommended way to meditate. In other words, meditating on nothing or meditating on some lights, meditating on the tip of the nose is not recommended in Krishna consciousness. But meditating on Krishna 24 hours a day is recommended. And it's yoga. Yoga means that you're connected to Krishna one way or the other. So we connect to Krishna through devotional service, through chanting the names of the Lord. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hearing about the Lord, which is a very, very wonderful thing to hear about the pastimes of the Lord as we're doing now. And in other words, always being focused on Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And ultimately, just being engaged in devotional service, cooking for the Lord, chanting for the Lord, dancing for the Lord, taking the prasadam that the Lord offers us, all different things related to Krishna. So Prabhupada says in this purport, the success of the yoga process is very nicely described here. It is specifically mentioned that the form of the Lord as four-handed Narayana is the object of meditation for the followers of Yoga Marga. Yoga Marga, Marga means the path of yoga. In the modern age, there are so many so-called yogis who do not target their meditation on a four-handed Narayana form. Some of them try to meditate on something impersonal or void, but that is not approved by the great yogis who follow the standard methods. The real yoga marga process is to control the senses, sit in a solitary and sanctified place. That means a holy place like a temple or holy places in India, and meditate on the four-handed form of Narayana, decorated as described in this chapter, as he appeared before the four sages, the Kumaras. This Narayana form is Krishna's expansion. Therefore, Narayana form has four forms. Therefore, the Krishna consciousness movement, which is now spreading, is real topmost process of yoga practice. Krishna consciousness is the highest yoga performance by trained devotional yogis. Despite all the allurement of yoga practice, the 8 kinds of yogic perfections are hardly achievable by the common man. So see, now, Prabhupada, what he does often is what we just read. He explains what is like the traditional way of practicing yoga. Then he explains how it's almost impossible to do it correctly in the age of Kali, or Kali Yuga. And then he will explain what Lord Chaitanya recommended in Kali Yuga as a recommended way of practicing meditation on Krishna. So he says, Krishna consciousness is the highest yoga performance by trained devotional yogis. Despite all the allurement of yoga practice, the 8 kinds of yogic perfections are hardly achievable by the common man. But here it is described that the Lord, who appeared before the 4 sages, is himself full of all 8 of those perfections. The highest yoga marga, or yoga path, process is to concentrate the mind 24 hours a day on Krishna. This is called Krishna consciousness. The yoga system is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, or as recommended in the Patanjali Yoga process. It's different from the nowadays practice of Hatha Yoga, as it is generally understood in the Western countries. Let me read that again. The yoga system, as described in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, or as recommended in the Patanjali Yoga process, is different from the nowadays practiced Hatha Yoga, as it is generally understood in Western countries. Real yoga practice is to control the senses, and after such control is established, to concentrate the mind on the Narayana form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Lord Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and all other Vishnu forms with 4 hands, decorated with conch, lotus, club, and wheel, are plenary expansions of Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, it is recommended that one meditate upon the form of the Lord. To practice concentration of the mind, one has to sit with the head and the back in a straight line, and one must practice in a secluded place, sanctified by a sacred atmosphere. The yogi should observe the rules and regulations of brahmacharya to strictly live a life of self-restraint and celibacy. One cannot practice yoga in a congested city, living a life of extravagancy, including unrestricted sex indulgence and adultery of the tongue. Yoga practice necessitates controlling the senses, and the beginning of sense control is to control the tongue. One who can control the tongue can also have control over other senses. One cannot allow the tongue to take all kinds of forbidden food and drink, and at the same time advance in the practice of yoga. It is a very regrettable fact that many unauthorized so-called yogis come to the Western countries and exploit people's inclination towards yoga practice. Such unauthorized yogis even dare to say publicly that one can indulge in a habit of drinking and at the same time practice meditation. Well, let me just stop there for a minute and talk about this. The whole point of yoga is to be able to focus the mind on the 4-armed form of Krishna, or Narayana. So let's look up what is what is the goal of meditation? See what it says there.
Meditation is a mental exercise that can help you achieve a sense of calm, peace, and balance, which can improve your emotional well-being and overall health. It can also help you learn to stay centered and keep inner peace.
Well, you see, that's misleading right there. Did they mention the 4-armed form of Krishna? No. They didn't mention Krishna at all. You see how definitions in the dictionary, oftentimes they're misleading, not just about yoga, but many other words also. And you can see that the kids go to school and they read these definitions And they think, oh, well, now I know what this word means. But no, many of the definitions, not all, but many of the definitions given in the dictionary are misleading. Now, that's one example right there. That's a misleading definition of yoga. So, therefore, we must read Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita to not be misled by modern dumbed down definitions. So the definitions in the dictionary, sometimes they're correct, sometimes they're misleading. And if we just think that the definition in the bottom in the dictionary is the correct meaning of the word, we become misled. That's why Prabhupada he would oftentimes define words that are used in everyday usage, but he would give a different definition or a more refined definition than what's in the dictionary. So you just read the definition of yoga, right? Read it again.
Meditation is a mental exercise that can help you achieve a sense of calm, peace, and balance, which can improve your emotional well-being and overall health. You also can use it to relax and cope with stress by focusing on something that calms you. Meditation can help
Focusing on something that calms you. What is that? Anyway, go ahead.
Meditation can help you learn to stay centered and keep inner peace.
Well, let's see what Prabhupada says here. The yogi should observe the rules and regulations of brahmacharya to strictly live a life of self-restraint and celibacy. Did it say anything like that? No.
So here, Maharaj, what is the main purpose of meditation? Although it's well known as a technique to reduce stress and anxiety, research shows that it may also help enhance your mood, promote healthy sleep patterns, and boost cognitive skills. Meditation is the habitual process of training your mind to focus and redirect your thoughts.
Focus on what?
Focus, habitual process of training your mind to focus and redirect your thoughts.
Redirect your thoughts on what? That's called a dead end, right? It doesn't really tell you what the goal is. Whereas here, let's see what Prabhupada says here. It says, the real yoga practice is to control the senses, and after control is established, to concentrate the mind on the Narayana form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Did it say anything like that? Not at all. Lord Krishna is the original personality of Godhead and all other Vishnu forms, with four hands decorated with conch, lotus, club, and wheel, are plenary expansions of the Lord. Well, you see, meditating on the form of Narayana, or the original form of Krishna, is much more fun than what that said. What did that say again?
Yes. Although it's well known as a technique to reduce stress and anxiety, research shows that it may also help enhance your mood, promote healthy sleep patterns, and boost cognitive skills. Meditation is the habitual process of training your mind to focus and redirect your thoughts.
Right. That's leading you to a dead end right there. Doesn't tell you what you should meditate on. So see, that's the difference between, that's why I say many times the definitions given in the dictionary, not all words, but many times like this, they're misleading. And you go to school and you look up words in the dictionary, and you think that those definitions are correct, but oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes they're misleading, like this definition. It doesn't really tell you what is the real purpose of yoga. Okay, so here Prabhupada says, in Bhagavad Gita, it is recommended that one meditate upon the form of the Lord. To practice concentration of the mind, one has to sit with the head and the back in a straight line, and one must practice in a secluded place sanctified by a sacred atmosphere. The yogi should observe the rules and regulations of brahmacharya to strictly live a life of self-restraint and celibacy. One cannot practice yoga in a congested city, living a life of extravagancy, including unrestricted sex indulgence and adultery of the tongue. So what's adultery of the tongue? It means we're eating all kinds of things that are forbidden. Meat, fish, eggs, shrimp, all kinds of things that are horrible. And that's a great phrase, adultery of the tongue. It's a great phrase. It's an amazing phrase, The tongue has two processes. It tastes and it vibrates. So the adultery of the tongue would be tasting horrible things like shrimp and meat, all those type of things, liquor and so forth. Adultery of the tongue. Look up the word adultery. It's a very good word. It basically means, something contaminating, something that is perverted. It's not the wholesome. What's it say? Adultery.
Yeah, there is the sexual reference, but there is the other translations, other meaningful words like unfaithfulness, infidelity, falseness, disloyalty, unchastity, cheating.
Okay, so all that is adultery of the tongue. Okay. The yogi should observe the rules and regulations of brahmacharya to strictly live a life of self-restraint and celibacy. One cannot practice yoga in a congested city, living a life of extravagancy, including unrestricted sex indulgence and adultery of the tongue. Look up the word adultery, adultery. Probably means it means that you're contaminating the tongue. Is that what it is?
It is illicit connection.
Is that what it says?
Yeah.
Illicit connection?
Yeah.
Adultery?
Yeah.
Okay. In other words, you're
infidelity or cheating is the act of either.
right. That's one definition. Yes. We have to look at the second and third and fourth definition also. Well, in other words, when you don't use the tongue to glorify Krishna, but you use it for nonsense things, that's adultery of the tongue.
Basically what it is.
Yeah, you're not using it correctly, and you're contaminating it. Just like people who like to use curse words all the time. I won't give any examples right now, but that's adultery of the tongue. You're misusing the tongue by vibrating words that are horrible.
Is to pollute is another.
What's that?
To pollute. Adulterate means to pollute.
Oh, pollute. Okay.
Pollute. Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't pronounce it correct.
Pollute.
Yeah. Okay. One who can control the tongue can also have control over the other senses. One cannot allow the tongue to take all kinds of forbidden food and drink, and at the same time advance in the practice of good. It is very regrettable fact It is a very regrettable fact that many unauthorized so-called yogis come to the Western countries and exploit people's inclination towards yoga practice. Such unauthorized yogis even dare to say publicly that one can indulge in a habit of drinking and at the same time practice meditation. Whoa. 5,000 years ago, Lord Krishna recommended yoga practice to Arjuna. But Arjuna frankly expressed his inability to follow the stringent rules and regulations of the yoga system. One should be very practical in every field of activities and should not waste his valuable time in practicing useless gymnastic feats in the name of yoga. Real yoga is to search out the four-handed super soul within one's heart and see him perpetually in meditation. Have you ever heard that definition of yoga anywhere else? That's why most of the definitions that are given in the dictionary, not most, but a lot, are misleading. So here we have a real definition of yoga. I'll say, real yoga is to search out the four-handed super soul within one's heart and see him perpetually in meditation. Such continued meditation is called samadhi, and the object of this meditation is the four-handed Narayana with bodily decorations as described in this chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. If, however, one wants to meditate upon something void or impersonal, it will take a very long time before he achieves success in yoga practice. We cannot concentrate our mind on something void or impersonal. Real yoga is to fix the mind on the form of the Lord, the four-handed Narayana who is sitting in everyone's heart. Now you could say, well, wait a minute, that's not what we're doing in Krishna consciousness, meditating on the four-handed form of Narayana. Do you see any deities? The four-handed form of Narayana in the temple? No? You see the two-handed form, Krishna. And there might be some temples that have the four-handed form, Narayana. But here it says, the real yoga is to fix the mind on the form of the Lord, the four-handed Narayana who is sitting in everyone's heart. By meditation, one can understand that, well, Narayana in this four-handed form is an expansion. It's coming from Krishna. He has the two-handed form, but sometimes Krishna manifests his four-handed form also. So, how do we understand it? How do we, let's say, understand this in the context of Krishna consciousness? Well, let's keep reading and see what it says. By meditation, one can understand that God is seated within one's heart. Even if one does not know it, God is seated within the heart of everyone. Not only is he seated in the heart of the human being, but he is also within the hearts of cats and dogs. Bhagavad Gita certifies this fact by the declaration of Lord Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hrideshe. Hrid means the heart. The Ishvara, the supreme controller of the world, is seated in the heart of everyone. Not only is he in everyone's heart, but he is also present within the atom. No place is vacant or devoid of the presence of God. And that's a very significant statement. No place is vacant or devoid of the presence of God. Now, Hiranyakashipu learned a lesson. He said to Prahlad, where's your God? And Prahlad said, well, he's everywhere. He's everywhere. Is he in this column? There was like 1,000 columns, right? So he said, yes. So Hiranyakashipu takes his sword and breaks the column, and out comes the Krishna in his forearm and kills Hiranyakashipu. So yeah, Krishna is present everywhere. Okay. So someone will say, well, is he present in my closet? And you say yes. So he opens the door in his closet and looks around. I say, I don't see him. Well, he doesn't have the eyes to see him. That's the whole point. When you have to develop the eyes to be able to see the presence of Krishna. But if you chant the Hare Krishna mantra, then you're associating with Krishna, because the sound vibration Hare Krishna mantra is not different than Krishna. Now, of course, this is hard for some people to realize. How can, they'll say, well, how can he be a vibration of a mantra? And anyway, I don't see him. Well, that's because a person doesn't have any faith at all. And without proper training and proper, let's say, understanding, they want to see God. So you can't even see Joe Biden in person. I might see God. I might see him on the newsreel, but you can't even go to the Washington D.C. and knock on the door of Joe Biden. So how are you going to see God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead? You have to be, we have to be trained and have the qualifications to see God. So Bhagavad Gita certifies this fact by the declaration of the Lord Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Pridese. That means that Ishvara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sarvabhutanam, of all living entities, Pridese means in the heart. For God is present in the heart of all living entities. The Ishvara, the supreme control of the world, is seated in the heart of everyone. Not only is he in everyone's heart, but he's also present within the atom. No place is vacant or devoid of the presence of the Lord. That means the Lord is also present on the moon. People say, oh, it's just a dusty planet. Therefore, let's go to Mars. And there's no water on the moon. All that is false. Everything they're saying is false about the moon, which means they probably never went to the moon. So, not only is he in everyone's heart, but he's also present within the atom. Now, in school, do you ever hear information like this? No. You see that. So then, how can you actually perceive reality when you're being misled? And by being misled, you'll never become actually Krishna conscious. So it all depends on what we're hearing. If we're hearing misleading statements all the time, and misleading like philosophy and so forth, then we will never actually become Krishna conscious. We have to hear Bhagavad Gita spoken by devotees and with Prabhupada's purports. There's this one devotee, he would only read the verse, never read the purports in Prabhupada's books. And and you never really understand properly without reading the purport. Like, for example, I'll give you one very dramatic example. There was this one lady used to come to classes I was giving. This is a long time ago, and she was not really a believer in Krishna consciousness, but she was trying to understand. And when there was a description of Krishna in his form as a child or a baby, she objected. She said, "I can't accept this. You're worshiping a baby." He says, I just can't accept this. It's not possible. God is, is the old guy, is, the gray hair and so forth. He can't be in the form of a baby. Well, Krishna can assume any form he wants. But in order to accept that type of statement, you have to hear about Krishna for a long time, and then eventually you understand, yeah, he can assume any form he wants. And in that form, he is Eka, he's one. In other words, whether he's in the form of a baby or in the form of an adult, he has the same potencies.
Ekarasa.
Eka rasa. He always has the same potential. So therefore, when it's a little baby, he kicks the cart that kills the demon, the cart demon, right? But he was just a little baby with a very soft body, but he has all the powers in that form of a baby. So you see, these things are almost impossible for people to understand. Why? Because they don't have the right diet, they don't associate with the right people, and they don't read the right books, and therefore they can't imagine the Supreme Personality Godhead in his form as a baby sometimes, or in his universal form as the Virat Rupa. It's too much for them. They can't process it. Because they're living in a very, very limited, what do you call it, time and space module. Time and space module. Look that up. Time and space module. Interesting word. Time and space module. Let's say. Like you look, we're in this room, you see, and then you get into your car, and then you go home, and you're in your bedroom, or the bathroom. Okay, so the time and space module means that the space that you're in, like you're not in, on top of a mountain, and so watching, you can see, like if you're on Mount. Mount Rainier? Yeah, Mount Rainier. And you're looking, and the time and space module on top of Mount Rainier is different than the time and space module in your bathroom. What did it say?
The representation of the progression of vehicles.
Professional what?
Progression
Of
vehicles in space along the y-axis and time along the x-axis.
Oh, okay, that's a real scientific definition. Any other definitions? Time and space module. Well, there's two things. There's time and there's space. Any other definitions for it?
So there is the space-time concept in. So there is a time space and space time.
There's time, space, and space time. What did you say?
Yeah, apparently
What's
what's the difference here? What's the difference?
This is fun. You're looking up definitions of words and saying how sometimes
So space-time, somebody translated. I don't know whether this is the official one, but space-time, it's our physical plane where incarnations take place.
incarnation.
Yeah. And then time-space is the extra-physical invisible dimensions, also called inner planes in esoteric senses. It is the astral plane, mental plane, causal plane, and so this is some.
Where did you get those?
Very confusing, but
I mean, everything's confusing.
Yeah, so is another this one is space-time is a visible physical realm where we now experience as conscious incarnate beings,
What? Conscious what?
incarnated beings.
Incarnated.
This is the realm of the physics and the proverbial five senses. Whereas the time-space is the invisible metaphysical realms, also known as the inner planes. So they're talking about the phenomenal and the numinous. So the phenomenal part is what they are using,
You
the
can see.
space-time,
Someone
and
can
then
see.
something you can perceive with any of the senses. And the thing that you cannot perceive with the senses, they're saying that
Aluminum.
yeah,
See, but it exists.
yeah. So that's the time-space. So space-time versus time-space. This is
I don't understand, but I know the words, but I
yeah.
okay. I guess you gotta go on a spaceship to experience time space.
Basically, physical time cannot exist in the absence of space fabric, but space fabric can exist in the absence of physical time.
Space fabric. This is okay. Space fabric. What is space fabric?
When a physical entity comprises physical time, the three-dimensional space fabric is converted to a four-dimensional physical space-time.
Oh, three-dimensional thing going to four dimensions. Okay, now fourth dimensions, this is an interesting word, fourth dimension. And we perceive things mostly in three dimensions. That is length, width, and breadth. The fourth dimension, the length, width, and breadth becomes infinite. Look at a fourth dimension. See what they say about fourth dimension. Fourth dimension means everything becomes infinite and not limited anymore. Important to know these definitions. You can try and follow what is the way scientists talk.
Saying here, dimensional space is the mathematical extension of the concept of three-dimensional space.
Mathematical extension of the three dynamical. Well, basically, I'm trying to make it simple. It means that those three dimensions become infinite.
The fourth dimension is defined as a space containing coordinates beyond length, width, and depth.
Yes.
మీకు వాళ్ళ కైపు పక్కన కొత్త ఫార్ములా ఏంగిలో అన్న तुम्हाला ఒక डेरिवेशन करा
Sorry. That's translation.
Someone's dead.
Somebody, it says Zoom user.
Okay. All right. So let's continue a little bit more. It says here, by meditation, one can understand that God is seated within one's heart. Even if one does not know it, God is seated within the heart of everyone. Not only is he seated in the heart of a human being, but he is also seated within the hearts of cats and dogs, meaning all living entities. Bhagavad Gita certifies this fact by the declaration of the Lord Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hridese. Ishvara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sarvabhutanam, all living entities, Hridese, is in the Hrid. Hrid is the heart of all living entities. The Ishvara, or the supreme controller of the world, is seated in the heart of everyone. Well, who's the supreme controller of the world? It's Krishna. Is seated in the heart of everyone. So Krishna is in your heart and it's in my heart also, everybody's heart. Not only is he in everyone's heart, but he is also present within the atom. No place is vacant or devoid of the presence of the Lord. Now you take that one sentence and you should like put it on your wall or something, or memorize it, and always keep it in your mind. It says that
No place.
no place.
Yeah. No place is
Not,
Vacant.
no place is vacant or devoid of the presence of the Lord. That is a statement of Isho Upanishad.
Isa Vashyam Idam Sarvam. That one.
That is a statement of Isho Upanishad. Okay, well, where is my Isho Upanishad?
Right here.
Oh, there it is.
Is that the one? Isa Vashyam Idam Sarvam or Om Purnamada Purnamidam?
Om Punam Adab Punamidam Punat Punamidam Dachite Punasya Punamaya Punat Eva Vasishyate.
I think maybe the next one, Maharaj, because it says the next statement here is God is present everywhere and that his right of proprietorship applies to everything. So that means like Isa Vashyam Idam Sarvam.
In purple. It doesn't say that in the verse.
No, here it says no place is vacant or devoid of the presence of the Lord. This is the statement of Isa Upanishad. God is present everywhere and his right of proprietorship applies to everything. I'm just thinking that what Prabhupada is referring to is
Okay, but where does it say that in Isha Upanishad?
the first verse.
The first verse?
Isa Upanishad mantra one.
Om Punam Adab Punamidam, the invocation verse.
No. First one is Isa Vashyam.
Eva Hakarma needs to be done somehow.
No, this one.
Oh, Isha Vaisham Idam Sarvam. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. Okay, so our homework for tomorrow is to find where that statement is in Isha Upanishad. It's not mantra one. And what is it says God is present in all places. Is that
No place is vacant or devoid of the presence of the Lord.
Yes. So let's find that's a good homework for tomorrow. Look it up. See which verse it's talking about. Okay. So Bhagavad Gita, let's see. The Ishvara, the supreme controller of the world, is seated in the heart of everyone. Not only is he in everyone's heart, but he is also present within the atom. No place is vacant or devoid of the presence of the Lord. Now what does that mean exactly? That means that no matter what, wherever you are, you're always being witnessed. Or no matter wherever we are, you're always being witnessed. Now, you might go into your house, go up to the bedroom, lock the door of the bed, of the bedroom, close all the windows, the lights. Still Krishna is there. You might think, well, no, nobody's there. Nobody can see what I'm doing. And that's not a fact. Krishna is there, and there are many other living entities there, bugs and others, and Krishna can see through the eyes of all those living entities also. So there's no such thing as privacy. Now, that's a hard statement to accept, because that means you can't get away with anything. There's always going to be a witness. Just like whenever there was this one British teacher, and he was teaching young Indian students, and he was talking, and he said, look, I don't believe in Hindu philosophy, because it says that, God is everywhere. I think that's what he said. I'm not sure. But basically, he was saying that there's no such thing as karma. Why? Because where is the witness, right? Let's say you have bad karma from previous life. Where's the witness? You can't remember what you did in your previous life, and how can you be, prosecuted for something you can't even remember, and it was in a previous life, probably in a different body? Where's the witness of that? So that was like a logical argument to debunk reincarnation. How do you know that you were existing before? Where's the witness? But we know, Prabhupada said when that statement was made by one of the professors he's had when he was in high school or college. In college, he said, at that time I was not able to answer the question. I was not educated enough that, but now we know that Paramatma is the witness of everything. And Paramatma is present in the heart of every living entity and in every atom of the universe. So these are things we have to learn. So even Prabhupada himself, when he was in college, the professor said something like that, and he was not able to debunk the professor because he was not, let's say, trained enough in philosophy yet. But now he was trained and said, look, there's always going to be a witness, and that witness is Paramatma.
Well, there's one question posted.
Yes.
I have a question on meditation instruction. Is there an ideal time to meditate on Vishnu in the heart, and the difference with chanting constantly? From 13.8 to 12 in Bhagavad Gita purport, cleanliness is essential for making advancement in spiritual life. There are two kinds of cleanliness, external and internal. External cleanliness means taking a bath, but internal cleanliness, one has to think of Krishna always and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This process cleans the accumulated dust of past karma from the mind. So, going back, the question
means the dust accumulated karma
from the past. So, I don't know who's this D, but do you want to elaborate on your question?
What was
Unmute.
the question?
Is there an ideal time to meditate on Vishnu in the heart, and is there a difference with chanting constant?
Oh, okay. Anytime. You can meditate anytime on the Lord. Why should there be a specific time?
By time, I meant progress in our path. It seems to me like the main one of the main processes we do is chanting Hare Krishna. I'm just having a hard time understanding when someone would be instructed to do this additional form of meditation.
You mean meditating on the form of the Lord? What do you mean?
Well, you had mentioned we have deities, but none of them are the four-handed form.
Yes.
Deity work, like if I'm doing deity worship, I'm focusing on the two-handed form of A, B, or C. But now there's an additional instruction on one internally, which we don't see in front of us in the deity on the worship. So there must be some sort of way to get started on this process if we're supposed to do this.
Well, you see, the two-armed form of Krishna includes all the other forms of the Lord. all the Vishnu expansions of the Lord. So when you're meditating on the two-armed form of Krishna, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the other forms are within him. So you're at one time you're also meditating on the 4M form. Sometimes he has other forms that have more arms than 4. So all the forms of that Krishna may take are included in his two-armed form. That's what you should understand. All the forms that he can take are all included in his two-armed form. And therefore, sometimes he manifests his 4-armed form. Sometimes he manifests his 8-armed form. But all of those forms are within the 2-armed form of Krishna. Why don't you look at what the 8-armed form of Krishna is?
So, I mean, net, even though Prabhupada is explaining this, he's not asking us to change the course. That's because I think there is this, mainly for Dhananjay Prabhu, I want to make sure that he understood that it's not like a separate instruction, right? It's talking about 400 form meditation, but then eventually Prabhupada will summarize, I believe, saying that what we are doing in Krishna consciousness is all inclusive, and that's what you're summarizing.
Yeah, well, I haven't finished this report.
Yeah, so just, I think if you wait till the end, I think it will be clear probably.
Well, here he says, the real yoga is to search out the 4-handed super soul within one's heart and see him perpetually in meditation. Such continued meditation is called samadhi. And the object of this meditation is the 4-handed Narayana with bodily decorations, as described in this chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. If, however, one wants to meditate upon something void or impersonal, it will take a very long time before he achieves success in yoga practice. We cannot concentrate our mind on something void or impersonal. Real yoga is to fix the mind on the form of the Lord, the 4-handed Narayana, who's sitting in everyone's heart. By meditation, one can understand that God is seated within one's heart, even if one does not know. God is seated within the heart of everyone. Not only is he seated in the heart of a human being, but he's also within the hearts of cats and dogs. Bhagavad Gita certifies this fact by the declaration of the Lord Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Pridesha. The Ishvara, or supreme control of the world, is seated in the heart of everyone. Not only is he in everyone's heart, but he's also present within the atom. No place is vacant or devoid of the presence of the Lord. That is the statement of Ishopanishad. God is present everywhere, and his right of proprietorship applies to everything. That meaning he's the owner of everything. The feature of the Lord by which he is present everywhere is called Paramatma. Atma means the individual soul, and Paramatma means the individual super soul. Both Atma and Paramatma are individual persons. The difference between Atma and Paramatma is that the Atma of the soul is present only in the particular body, whereas Paramatma is present everywhere. In this connection, the example of the sun is very nice. I'm just reading this because it's a long purport. And I think eventually we'll get to the answer that we're looking for. An individual person may be situated in one place, but the sun, even though a similar individual entity, is present on the head of every individual person. In Bhagavad Gita, this is explained. Therefore, even though the qualities of all entities, including the Lord, are equal, the super soul is different from the individual soul by quantitative power of expansion. In other words, our soul is only in our heart, but Krishna is in the heart of all living entities. Right? The Lord or the super soul can expand himself into millions of different forms, whereas the individual soul cannot do so. The super soul, being seated in everyone's heart, can witness everyone's activities, present, past, and future. In the Upanishads, the super soul is described as being seated with the individual soul as friend and witness. As a friend, the Lord is always anxious to get back his friend. In other words, We're in the material world now. Krishna wants us to come back to the spiritual world. He's very anxious, more anxious than we are, for us to go back to him. In the Upanishads, the super soul is described as being seated within the individual soul as friend and witness. As a friend, the Lord is always anxious to get back his friend and the individual soul and bring him back home, back to God. As a witness, he is the bestower of all benedictions, and he endows each individual with the result of his actions. The super soul gives the individual soul all facilities to achieve whatever he desires to enjoy in this material world. Suffering is a reaction to the living entity's propensity to try to lord it over the material world. But the Lord instructs his friend, the individual soul, who is also his son, to give up all other engagements and simply surrender unto him for perpetual bliss and an eternal life full of knowledge. This is the last instruction of Bhagavad Gita, the most authorized and widely read book on all varieties of yoga. Thus, the last word of Bhagavad Gita is the last word in the perfection of yoga. By the way, Arjuna never did any yoga. And he's the best yogi. Why? Because he was always serving Krishna. So, although he never did any of the yoga postures, but he was the best yogi because he was completely surrendered to the will of Krishna. Whatever Krishna told him to do, he would do. So that's the highest form of yoga, is pleasing the Lord, and only activity is to please the Lord and follow his instructions. There again is a misleading definition of yoga. They don't mention anything like what I just said. The highest yoga is to please Krishna.
Mhm.
All right. So the super soul being, this is a very long purport. The super soul being seated in everyone's heart can witness everyone's activities, past, present, and future. In the Upanishads, the super soul is described as being seated within the individual soul as friend and witness. As a friend, the Lord is always anxious to get back his friend, the individual soul, and bring him back home, back to Godhead. As a witness, he's the bestower of all benedictions, and he endows each individual with the result of his actions. The super soul gives the individual soul all facilities to achieve whatever he desires to enjoy in this material world. Suffering is a reaction to the living being's propensity to try to lord it over the material world. But the Lord instructs his friend, the individual soul, who is also his son, to give up all other engagements and simply surrender unto him for perpetual bliss and an eternal life full of knowledge. This is the last instruction of Bhagavad Gita, the most authorized and widely read book in all varieties of yoga. Thus, the last word of Bhagavad Gita is the last word in the perfection of yoga. Now, let's take an example. Have you ever heard of Harvey Weinstein?
In your class.
Yeah, well, Harvey was a very rich and prominent man. He was, he made, was it something Max?
Miramax.
Miramax, yeah, made movies. And he always was abusing female superstars. Because obviously, all these females wanted to become, movie stars, and Harvey would always promise them this and that in order to, defile them, to, have sex with them. So, finally, all the ladies that he cheated and abused, complained about him. And then he ended up in jail because he was, promising them this and that, but only to, but they never really gave them what they wanted, and they all realized that he was just promising these things to have sex. So, when you see a person like that, it's completely an illusion. And you see it here. What does Krishna say here? It says, Krishna, or the super soul, is seated in everyone's heart and can witness everyone's activities, past, present, and future. In the Upanishads, the super soul is described as being seated within the individual soul, as friend and witness. As a friend, the soul is always anxious to get back his friend, the individual soul, and bring him back home, back to God. As a witness, he's the bestower of all benedictions, and he endows each individual with the result of his actions. That's a very significant statement. The super soul gives the individual soul all facilities to achieve whatever he desires to enjoy in this material world. Suffering is a reaction to the living entity's propensity to try to lord it over the material world. Well, that's exactly what Harvey tried to do. He tried to take advantage of so many women, and he did that. And eventually, they all came together and protested, and Harvey ended up in jail. So, but there's a bigger jail. There's the physical jail in the material world, but there's a bigger jail. It's called the hell, or Narak. So it's better to suffer in the material jail in this world than to go to Narak, which is hell, because it's much worse than the jail in this world. Okay, so
what is it, time check?
Okay.
Because this is a long purport. Should we come back to it?
I don't know, really. It's Sunday, right?
That slide is actually summarizing it. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita.
Go ahead. Yeah.
As a witness, he's the bestower of all benedictions, and he endows each individual with the result of his action. The super soul gives the individual soul all facilities to achieve whatever he desires to enjoy in this material world. Suffering is a reaction to the living entity's propensity to try to lord it over the material world. But the Lord instructs his friend, the individual soul, who is also his son, to give up all other engagements and simply surrender unto him for perpetual bliss and an eternal life full of knowledge. This is the last instruction of Bhagavad Gita, the most authorized and widely read book in all varieties of yoga. Thus, the last word of Bhagavad Gita is the last word in the perfection of yoga. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that a person who is always absorbed in Krishna consciousness is the topmost yogi. What is Krishna consciousness? As the individual soul is present by his consciousness throughout his entire body, so the super soul of Paramatma is present throughout the whole creation by super consciousness. This super conscious energy is imitated by the individual soul who has limited consciousness. I can understand what is going on within my limited body, but I cannot feel what is going on in another's body. I am present throughout my body by my consciousness, but my consciousness is not present in another's body. The super soul or Paramatma, however, being present everywhere and within everyone, is also conscious of everyone's existence. The theory that the soul and the super soul are one is not acceptable because it is not confirmed by authoritative Vedic literature. The individual soul's consciousness cannot act in super consciousness. This super consciousness can be achieved, however, by dovetailing individual consciousness with the consciousness of the Supreme. This dovetailing process is called surrender or Krishna consciousness. In other words, you agree with Krishna on everything. You follow his instructions. This dovetailing process is called surrender or Krishna consciousness. From the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, we learned very clearly that Arjuna in the beginning did not want to fight with his brothers and relatives, but after understanding Bhagavad Gita, he dovetailed his consciousness with the supreme consciousness of Krishna he was then in Krishna consciousness. So what does this mean? He's using the word dovetail. Dovetail, well, traditionally, in the Middle Ages, and even up to today, you had these craftsmen who were very highly trained. They did not use any nails or glue to build furniture. Now, how do you do that? Well, they would dovetail. So look up the dictionary of dovetailing. Dovetailing is you have a male form and a female form. So if I draw a picture of that, let's see what the male form. So male form, yeah, okay, the male form is something that you put into the female form. We have a picture of it. Dovetailing, wood dovetailing, right? So you can build things without nails and glue. Show it from. Yeah, right, that's it right there. To show everybody. This is called dovetailing. So they build things with furniture and things without nails and without glue. You have to be an expert to do that. It has to fit exactly.
I have seen in childhood they make like this kind of bed. They just make like such a way that you just go inside.
Yeah.
Just holds it.
Even this one is better.
This is also,
Yeah.
yeah, this is also.
Oh, okay.
You just put it inside. Inside thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Even there was something in the news recently about the pyramids.
Yeah, they're just stones put together.
Perfectly.
Yeah, perfectly.
And
Yeah,
each constituent is like weighs many tons. First of all,
yeah,
how they move that is a miracle.
yeah. There are some temples in India also that are just dovetailed like that.
Yeah.
Because the pillars, they put the rocks on top of the rock, so in place in such a way there is no other material that joins them. It's just stones placed.
Unbelievable.
They last longer because they are not viewed.
Yes. All right, we'll stop there. Very good. It's a long footboard.
Yeah, this has the entire philosophy.
Philosophy. Thank you very much.
Hare
Krishna, be happy.
Any other questions or comments online?
Every day we learn something.
I think the Rath carts in Jagannath Puri are made like that. There's no screws or bolts or anything. They just put the wood together as carts.
So even the Jagannath Yatra cart,
Yes.
Sankarshan Prabhuji is saying that that's also they're also made that just by the dovetailing process. Are you talking about the Puri?
Yes, yes, the carts in Puri.
Yeah, in Jagannath Puri,
Yeah.
the real Jagannath carts that they use for the procession.
Yeah.
Apparently, he says that they are also made using the dovetailing process. No other metal or
Traditional technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all throughout the Middle Ages, they were building things with dovetailing.
Yes.
And it has to be precise. And then it'll stay, you don't have to use glue or nails or anything. It'll stay, like that for thousands of years, for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, bro. Thank you for
Thank
sharing.
you all. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
All
Hare
praise to
Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada.
Pad ki jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram.